I made it. I'm here at night, and it appears we have two people with us so far. I have absolutely no idea how to start this one. So I'm just going to kill time for a minute and see if anyone wants to pop on and say anything. Okay, we've got a few people. Does anyone want to say hi? I am a complete blank right now. I just worried about getting here on time, and I have nothing prepared to start with. Yeah, this is the worst start I've had so far. I have no idea what to say, and nobody's saying anything yet. Well, hello, Ola. I'm not sure if I have seen you comment before. How are you doing tonight? Yeah, so for anybody who is just popping on to this and has no idea who I am, I'm co-hosting the channel now. If you're an old fan of Andrew and haven't been around for a while, he handed the channel over to me and Ryan. And I have been trying to go on every full moon at midnight to do something live in case anybody has anything they want to discuss. And so, unfortunately, I don't have anything coming to me to say. I am just open if anybody has any questions or wants to start any topic of discussion. All right, so it appears Ryan is here and Ola is here. A few other people are watching, but nobody's saying anything yet. Oh, well, I never promised these would be entertaining or would go anywhere. I just said I would try to be here at midnight every full moon. Okay, Ola says, awesome, thank you. Yes, it's my first time to speak to you. The moon's beautiful tonight. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it yet tonight. It's been very overcast here. So I'm glad you can see it though. And so, Ola, have you watched the channel before? Do you know who I am? And anyone else who's on there, I am open to anything anybody wants to say. So overall, up till now, things with the channel have gone pretty well. Hey, Chris, how you doing? Good to see you here. And yeah, it looks like you can see the full moon tonight as well. I can't. So I don't know. Maybe tonight is going to be a dud. I am completely clear of any, empty of any topics to say. And so far, nothing's picked up. Okay, glad you're doing good. Chris says, good. And you? Great to see you again. Yeah, great to see you, Chris. I really enjoyed speaking with you. And I think everybody's going to like it when we put that up. So Ola says, yes, I just watched you guys for the first time a couple of days ago. I started listening because you were speaking about Jordan Peterson. Yeah, that's the way a lot of people find our channel. And our channel is just another one of those manifestations of everything going on around Dr. Peterson right now. A lot of the idea of the channel is to develop an amateur level, somewhere that instead of just watching long form discussions, people would have a chance to participate in them. So what got you into Jordan Peterson yourself? For me, I was looking up videos about Jung and depth psychology and came across him. What got you into Jordan Peterson, and what do you find most useful about what you've heard from him? And so anyone else watching, I guess we'll take that as the topic, Jordan Peterson, for the moment. He's given us an opportunity to reach out to each other. He's given us some common language to talk about things that can be difficult to talk about. He's encouraging just good faith conversation and people trying to better themselves. It gives us all something to rally around, and a fair number of communities, like not just here, but you can look at Paul Vanderklay's little community building around him. There's lots of self-authoring groups and book clubs forming around him right now. So Ola says, I like the idea of being responsible for yourself and others. Yeah, absolutely. I like the direction of focusing more on yourself than other people. For me, it comes from finding that that's the way to inner peace, though. It wasn't about that's the right thing to do. I just found that by focusing on myself instead of focusing on what I don't like about the world or other people, really forced me to face all my own shadows. And you can avoid a lot of the responsibility you should be taking, and you can avoid a lot of the worst parts of yourself when you're fixated on complaining about other people, allowing you to project your issues onto them instead of dealing with your own yourself. Okay, yeah. So Chris, Ryan used to run the Soul Tree Project, so that's his way of posting when I'm on. Also, if I ever comment under the channel, I don't do it as sorting myself out. I'll do it as Mercury Black. So yeah, that's Ryan there for everyone who doesn't know the Soul Tree Project. Very uncharacteristically for me, I just don't feel I have a lot to say. And usually I can just run off at the mouth endlessly. So I'll talk about this. Yeah, it's been a fair adjustment actually to switch to talking this much. Before I started the channel, I talked to like my family. I would see friends occasionally, like in person, but and I would talk to, like since last summer, I've talked to Ryan and Andrew on a regular basis, but before taking over the channel, far, far less than now. Since taking over the channel, I've added to that all the conversations that you guys see, as well as a shitload of time talking to Ryan most days about, there's a lot more to do with the channel than just actually doing the videos. And so I have noticed for a while now that I've been talking way the fuck more than I'm used to. I used to spend, now it's like during a lot of what used to be my alone time where I'd be absolutely silent is where I'm doing stuff with the channel, having more conversations. And sometimes lately I get tired of talking so much. So I'm thinking at some point, I'm going to take a silent retreat, not by going anywhere, but by just, I'm not going to go online. I'm going to turn off my phone. I'm going to tell everyone to give me a few days. And at some point, I don't know, maybe over the summer, I'm going to take a silent retreat and give myself a few days off from talking, and no singing along with the radio, no talking to myself. I miss being silent for long stretches at a time. Back like about a decade ago when I spent a couple years alone, like 99% of the time, I had no phone, no internet. after a couple of years of that, when I did start hanging out with people again, I used to find that the muscles in my throat and tongue had like considerable atrophy from that. After the 2 years of almost not speaking at all, about 15, 20 minutes of conversation where I was talking a lot and I would notice the muscles get sore. And lately, I sometimes miss those time periods of just sitting and being silent. So I don't know, maybe I've talked too much late. That's why I don't have much to say. Okay, Ola said, why do you always choose to speak on the full moon? The idea was I was going to see before, like every now and I go live randomly sometimes, but the idea was to come on some regular basis that people could predict, like going on once a week, Monday nights or something like that, so that anyone who was always watching these after and wanted to see it would be able to predict. Doing it once a week would have been way too much for me. I do find these stressful. Like all day today, it was on my mind that I had to do the live stream tonight. And so I thought about once a month was what I could handle, and I figured a nice way to do, well, roughly once a month was just to do every full moon. I could have done something else like first day of the month, last day of the month or something, but it just felt right to do it on the full moon. Since we took over the channel, the very first full moon, I just spontaneously went live. There's a short one of that. And so I decided to continue with that. So far I've been live on every full moon. The first one wasn't at midnight, but midnight on full moons was just something people could predict easily. Like if you want to look forward to the next one. So Chris said, great idea. I've also experienced exactly what you're explaining. I go through these periods of intense speaking, then intense listening. I think it's a balance between receiving and giving information, something to that extent. Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of why I was so quiet at the beginning of our conversation the other day. I let you and Ryan go on quite a bit. And it was sort of that. I was really enjoying just listening to you guys. I am getting pretty tired of talking so much. Okay, so Mike says, hey, first timer, did not know of the handoff. Yeah, so it's me and Ryan Holsapple now. We're continuing with the Petersonian theme. We're continuing with the theme of sorting, although we're expanding on it quite a bit, and we're trying to make it to a large degree not just about ourselves. We're trying to make it more about the audience as well and create sort of a community here. So we've had a number of audience guests on, but if you've ever thought that you wanted to come on, if you'd ever like to come on the channel to talk about any self-improvement or doing self-authoring or just for a podcast, if there's something you want to discuss, just email, sortingmyselfout0 at gmail.com. It's on the about section. So yeah, we're trying to do a lot more interaction with the audience, and we're producing some content that's like Ryan's working on things that are a little bit more edited and polished, although also sometimes we just come on live randomly and see what's going on. What's my poison? Bourbon? So Mike's asking. No, I don't drink at all. And Ryan is a recovered alcoholic. So Ryan's been sober for years, but he doesn't drink for that reason. I don't drink, I was never an alcoholic. I drank like a fair amount as a teenager in early 20s, but I really got sick of alcohol. I found alcohol really wore on my body. I tended to get hangovers, and the older I got, the less I enjoyed alcohol. I also really think the only reason I drank so much as a teenager is that was the acceptable form of mood alteration. So alcohol was all over the place. I have no problem with altering our moods with chemicals. I smoke weed. but I just don't enjoy alcohol at all. It's been years and years and years since I've had a drop of it. Hi, Dick Justice. How you doing tonight? Anyone have anything in particular that they want to talk about? All right, what the fuck do I have to say without anyone prompting it with a question? Doing the channels, getting more and more real, is sinking in more and more, especially now. And so this week we did do a couple calls we've recorded that haven't gone up yet. But we also did some intake calls for the Sacred Flip program. So I met a couple listeners this week that we won't be posting anything from. Also, we've gotten some emails from people that didn't involve preparing any videos. So aside from the people you guys have seen me talk to, I've heard from a few other people who've been watching for a while now. And it's making all this much more real. Instead of just being numbers, I'm starting to know actual individuals in the audience, to know details about them. And so far, I'm surprised. I've really enjoyed hearing from every single person I've heard from. It's a very diverse group of people, it appears, listening. And now that a lot of you are becoming more real to me, I'm more certain I'm going to be sticking with this. And I don't know about tonight. I feel like tonight this is inferior, that I don't really have anything much to say. But it appears that some of our stuff has had a significant impact on some of you. And that matters so much more to me than the number of views. So this has been, although it's taken a lot more out of me than I thought it would, it feels like a full-time job. It's also a lot more rewarding than I thought it would be. I'm also feeling more optimistic about the world. After so long of just living in my own little bubble, and where all you see is the media side of things, the everything could go up in flames at any moment idea seems more and more real. But I'm surprised at the depth of character and the honest desire to improve I'm seeing in the people who write in. Now, I know that's not like a random selection of the population, that we're drawing a certain kind of person. And it's possible that the nature of the channel causes people to present that side of them to us more than they do otherwise. But I'm still finding it very encouraging to find out not only that so many people are trying so hard to improve things, and not just in a shallow way, like I want to be more attractive and I want to have more money and a better job, but like that also want to be better people and want to improve the world. I'm really surprised at how much of that there is in pretty much everyone we've talked to. Also, I'm like happily surprised at the diversity here. Like everything from people getting involved in a cult, mental patients like myself, to soldiers, and like we've got the insane and psychologists, just all sorts of different demographics all interested in this. And I find that encouraging. I like the diversity of the group and the way it shows some of that common humanity and just trying to do better in the world. So Chris says, talk about the shadow seems fitting for the night. I wish I was feeling more talkative, because usually that would inspire me to just ramble. I'm not so sure okay, I'll say something about the shadow, although it's probably not what you were expecting. I totally understand why we use the word shadow for that, and I understand why it's the dark side of the force, and I understand why dark and lack of light is always the evil side. And I know with the shadow, it's that properly integrated, every shadow has a purpose. So deeper, so yeah, that aspect of it. But I do find it unfortunate it's always darkness that is the dark side, because I find the dark so healing, so calm, so much the feminine end of God, that God is fully present in the light and the dark, like the sacred night, the beauty of darkness. And Mike says, I hear you. I took up the torch after being exposed to Peterson, Rogan, etc. Lost weight, and my bed is always made. All right, awesome. Good for you. For me, Peterson didn't really inspire me to get working on any of that self-help. It's because I was actively working on that I came across his work and found it so interesting. Me and him already had similar ideas about certain things, but he had it fleshed out. He'd come to his conclusions in such a different way. So for me, I wasn't inspired by that, but the big difference really that Peterson made in my life is the effect he's had on culture. And he has drawn me out of my bubble and into interacting with the world. Like literally it was him, because this channel originally was inspired by Peterson's work, Andrew following it. So Peterson's the reason the channel is here. I ended up reaching out to Andrew and wanting to support him because I thought he was doing something good. Then that just led to me being asked to take over this channel. Well, led first to me working with Ryan and being on his channel a bit, and then led to me taking over the channel. So because of this phenomenon Peterson has created and what's going on YouTube, I got accidentally sucked into this. So the biggest thing for me about Peterson is that he's responsible for the people who pulled me out of my bubble. The people who actively pulled me out, though, were Andrew and Ryan. My wife encouraged me as well. And then all of the audience members who responded to what Andrew did. I remember way back then, under, I think, the first or second video I did with Andrew, people commenting that they'd like to hear more from me, saying I should start my own channel. It's not that I didn't care that people said that back then. I just wasn't ready for it yet. Also, I still don't think I would have been ready to do a channel of my own even now. I think the only reason this channel's worked is because I've been working with Ryan and everything he's contributed to it. So I wasn't ready at the time to do anything at all, but I did listen to that, and I was looking to see if I could develop the ability to provide more content to those of you who found it interesting. And as far as having my own room clean, it's a struggle. My house still isn't organized properly and cleaned up properly, but it's vastly better than it was in the past. And for years and years, it's been getting a little better every year as I've been working on it. And Dick Justice says, I'm doing all right tonight. Thanks. I'm glad you're doing well. So far, it seems like everybody here is doing well. That's really fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. And it seems there's a few people here I've not interacted with before. So Dick Justice says, I'm thinking about reaching out to you guys via email soon. We'll see if I'm brave enough to do that. Absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. And don't put too much pressure on yourself about it. Reach out, take it one step at a time. If it's something you want to do, but you're feeling reluctant for some reason, start with just reaching out and saying, hey, I think maybe I want to talk sometime. And we can start the back and forth about when we might do that. And then when it comes to actually doing it, don't worry about whether you think you want it posted or not. You can reach out and say that you're reluctant about this, and we can always try a conversation sometime. We can record it And if it doesn't flow right, or you just don't feel comfortable about posting it, you can decide that after. So if you have something, okay, so what are you thinking about reaching out about? Are you looking to talk about things going on with you? Are you looking for some help with some sort of transformation or change? Or do you have something you're looking to share with the world? Something you want to discuss? Hey, Asa, great to see you. Okay, so Asa says, Merc, thanks for creating the ritual for me. The despair is really brutal right now, and it hits really hard at night. How can I create anything in this state? The terror of uncertainty unnerves me. So, wait, did we post our conversation? I don't think we did yet. So for anyone, so no one does know, but we had a conversation with Asa, and I ended up preparing a ritual for him and giving him some magical support. Sorry to hear how brutal the despair is right now. And you say it hits really hard at night. I always found it was the reverse for myself in the worst of my suicidal depression. Once night came, I found the dark comforting, and I like when everything else is asleep. And I live out in the country where I can't even see my neighbors' houses, but even out here, I find the middle of the night has a very different feeling. Once everything except the nocturnal animals goes to sleep. And out here, human energy is already so spread out. But I found the quiet of the night, that I could at least be alone with my despair, and I didn't have everyone else's happiness and activity mirroring the opposite of myself. So I always found the night more comforting. And how can you create anything in that state? Well, you might not be able to, or you might be able to create something very powerful in that state if you can gather any energy to work on your art. I imagine it would come out quite dark, but the terror of uncertainty unnerves you. Yeah, this sense of not having much to say is sticking with me. I wish I had more to say to you, although you can always go back to that same, you can always repeat that ritual to reconnect to that energy. And I am sending you whatever magical support or delusional support I have to send. Stick with it. This isn't going to last forever. And let's talk again sometime soon if we can. Has anything been going any better, Asa? All right, so James. Hey, James, good to see you. Just tuning in and looking forward to the rest of the stream. I don't know. I feel like I'm dropping the ball tonight. I'm really tired of talking so much. It would be nice to listen to you guys talk to each other. The old god says art is an act of will. Yes, absolutely. And it's hard to pull together much willpower when you're really struggling. Asa, yes, I would love that. So I assume that's to us talking again sometime. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, let's reach out to Ryan's, shoot him a message, and we'll set something up sometime soon. Just in the meantime, don't give up. And as hard as all of this is, and as hard as it is to believe, like Peterson says, you're stronger than that. You're stronger than the difficulty. Dig deep, stick it out, and this isn't going to last forever. So does anyone else have anything to say? Or is what you guys need a little less talking as well? How many people here fill all their spare time with podcasts, television, YouTube? How many people here don't have any time, just quiet thinking, don't meditate at all? If I were to just sit here silently for a full 5 minutes, would that give some of you time to notice the thoughts in your head that you're always too distracted from to pay attention to? Well, on the plus side, this running out of energy to speak actually could be good for me, because this time of year, and I am getting more manic, I'm sure that shows compared to when I started the channel. My energy is going up, but it's not going up as fast as I think it does most years for this time, like at all. And the same as when I started practicing heavier ritual magic. I found I could use up the manic energy in magic ritual and would be more grounded, like in between. I'm finding and I guess doing this channel has involved a lot of magic as well, but continuing my magical practices combined with putting so much effort into this channel has, I think, possibly used up even more of my manic energy than usual. So yeah, I think I'm more grounded for this time of year than I usually would be, because it's almost June. Yeah, this channel's wearing me out. The difficulty of, as an introvert, although I can feed off social energy, overall, very introverted. And both the time spent doing the channel, but also just adjusting to connecting to the world and to doing this has taken a lot of energy out of me this year. But maybe that will be good for my manic cycle. Maybe I will be a little more grounded this year than I ever have been before. 2 people said yes. What did I ask? Yeah, this stream's horrible. I'm getting answers and I forgot what the fuck I said. Oh, did I ask if people are filling stuff constantly? That you're always listening to something. And so so maybe the slower nature of this. If I choose to stop talking for a full minute now and then, use that time to notice what happens in your own head. If you just have to sit and wait for a minute, what comes up? And as it comes up, do you have a desire to look away from it or to deny it's there? So Mike says, we are stronger than the darkness, and often we climb out with small steps rather than leaps. Yes, absolutely. And so what it really takes is endurance, sticking with it, taking each small step and not getting discouraged that there's so many still ahead of you. So Alan says, but it really made me think about what my personality is. I thought it really is. Maybe my brain was just inflamed and was making me stressed. Then I was angry. Then I felt awful. Inflammation and stress and tension. Strange how much of that we have in the modern world when all of our basic needs are taken care of. I wonder in the past when it was still more of a struggle to survive, did we ever have this sort of stress we have now that wasn't connected to an actual life or death struggle? But it seems we've gotten to where we're our own worst problem. Like there's a time where we had to worry about snakes and scorpions and whatever that fucking cat was with a special tooth to stick through the back of a human skull. But we've gotten to where it's not nature causing most of our problems. It's nature and human nature that we're our own problem so much of the time. So Ryan says meditation is really key for me. Also taking walks. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to go for a bike ride in the mountains. These things keep me sane and connect me to my higher power. Yeah, absolutely. I spend tons of time meditating or just... So when you're alone, it's not even about meditating. You can do things and be more mindful of doing them. You can read a book and be mindful of what you're reading. You can watch a lecture. You can be riding on the bus. You can be digging a hole or washing the dishes and be mindful of what's in you. I found that meditation and time alone has just changed the way my internal experience is all the time. And the more I've done that and the more I've paid attention, I found I've made greater space for more parts of me to have room to express themselves. And so I can maintain a lot of opposite polarities at the same time. I've gotten to where in the winter I can be very depressed. I still get like my depression mania is linked up with the seasons. So I'm manic in the summer and depressed in the winter. And I'm still depressed through the winter, but I've gotten where I can be happy as well. And it's hard to explain, but it's as if the depression is just as big within me, but that I've made a larger space and another subpersonality or another part of me can step up and be active simultaneously. And so I will have, and I find I especially feel the physiological depression, the being lethargic and the physical sensations of depression. But it's like as if inside also, as if the depression's still there, like a winter storm, all that cold is still there. But instead of my internal environment being the top of the snow to the top of the clouds, all of that frozen wasteland, it's as if I've opened up another space above the clouds where it can be warm at the same time that it's cold beneath. It's hard to describe, but I can have much deeper, fuller experiences after significant meditation and time alone. Mike says, I play podcasts during my solitary night shifts. The voices of discussion helps me feel I am in social connection, even if I'm only a voyeur. Absolutely, and I do that as well. And everything I say about all this silence, I also do a ton of my time filled with podcasts in the back. I do that as well. I just try to do both. Although I find listening to podcasts, I'm more mindful of it, and I often have much more going on in my head than just tuning out and listening to it. All right, good. There's a few things here to respond to. So Brian says, I think there was conceptual stress, social status for resources, but nothing like this. Yeah, and I think that in the past, though, more of our stresses were probably connected to real like far more serious problems than most of us have now. Ryan says, I think ancient people were more at peace because life was lived on life's terms. Yes, perhaps. Or perhaps they had it worse than us and we are romanticizing the past. I honestly have no idea. And so Ryan says at one point there was no leisure to think about the future, to create unnecessary resistance because of the resistance at hand. Yeah, absolutely. Although I think there were lots of times also in our past where perhaps we weren't as well taken care of and we didn't have the luxuries, but there was a time where our technology was such that life moved at a slower pace, and a lot of, like, when it took a couple hours to go to the market, you had these long slow rides to think. Sometimes I get the feeling that in the past people just sat and thought more than they do now. The way during storms and such, all you have to do is hunker down. When you're walking everywhere you need to go instead of driving from building to building. The way life at a slower pace, like so much time hunting and gathering. And I guess there's some that would give you a lot of time to think compared to the way we are now. We have such an immense information flow compared to what we used to have. Brian says, you are the container, not the contents. Contextual psychology discusses these things you're exploring. And yeah, you're absolutely right. We're the container, not the contents, and we are not our thoughts. James says, I usually play podcasts when I'm doing various tasks. I find that if I try to do those tasks without a podcast or music playing, my mind frantically searches for some audio to put on to distract me. Yeah, I do that too. And I find a lot of tasks like trying to clean, or there's a whole bunch of tasks that I find difficult to just be mindful through. And so I also need music or podcasts or something going constantly. But if I'm free to let my mind wander, or if I'm like working outside in the summer, or there's other activities where I really prefer silence. And I love just extended periods of silence, particularly in the summer and outdoors in nature, just sitting and thinking in a more mindful way and exploring the inner world. So the old god says, would you recommend the hermit lifestyle? I have recently procured a parcel of land in the high desert mountains of West Texas, 85 miles from the nearest traffic light. Absolutely, I would. And I mean, I do understand more now that a lot of people can't handle solitude. So I recognize that it's really not for everybody, but it was so fantastic for me. If you're the right kind of person who can handle that solitude, you will find it immensely rewarding. It's amazing once you get away from the world for a couple months, you realize how much your thoughts were being controlled before, how much, and I don't mean like controlled in the sense of people are projecting, thoughts into your head and you need a tinfoil hat. But when someone honks at you in traffic, you can't help but pay attention to that. A lot of our days in society, we are constantly responding to things. We're being asked questions or being told things. And even like when you're dealing with other people, you can't even just listen. You have to nod your head as you're listening. You have to give someone a sign. If you just sit and listen to someone and you're not giving them feedback, even when you're not talking, they're going to find it strange. So you'll notice after spending a long time alone, just how much you're constantly being forced to react to other things. And I found that the longer I spent alone, also, the longer I would think about single things. I would get onto a certain topic and just think about it for hours and hours and hours. And I would sometimes go to bed thinking, like, fall asleep thinking about something. And my first thought in the morning, instead of what chores do I have to do or what's going on today, my first thought in the morning, often waking up, was, okay, what was it I was thinking about yesterday? Then it comes to me. And it was weird the way certain topics, when I remembered what I was thinking about and the points my thoughts had gotten to, it would be like exciting, like as if I had this great day ahead of me with a whole bunch planned, because I had this great train of thought to continue exploring. In the quiet, alone, you're in the same way that like traveling just makes your world larger. Some people only know a very small area of the earth. And the more you travel, just the larger your world is. Time alone is the same thing. The more time I spend alone, the larger my interior world gets. And some people really can't handle that. But if you are one of those people who can handle isolation, I find it immensely satisfying and rewarding. Oh, shit, sorry. I'm just reading this I should be reading it out loud because I'm live right now. James says, people talk about using podcasts to make use of their time, but I think it makes it harder for me to practice mindfulness and pay attention to my thoughts. Yes, it can do that. You can just lose yourself totally in it, or you can you can use the podcast itself as a mindfulness meditation. First of all, try to notice when you're hypnotized by the podcast and when you're not paying attention to mindfulness. Then once you can remind yourself to pay attention to it, notice that aside from just listening and hearing what they're saying, you have arising thoughts, and try to notice those thoughts as they arise. And you can it's with any art as well, even with music, you can get caught up in music where you're following the emotional roller coaster, but not being mindful of it. You're sucked right into it. Or you can work on being mindful of that as well, feeling the emotional swell, but also observing what specifically from the song caused it. And Ryan says, yes, it's easy to romanticize the past. Absolutely. Mega Flare Mike says, hey there, how's it going? Pretty good. I'm sort of scattered and have been running out of things to say a lot. I'm not doing so good at the live stream, I think. But I'm feeling good. I don't mind the way my brain's slow. Yeah, and I'm not embarrassed that this didn't go well for most of it. So that's a good sign. I kind of don't give a shit. I said I would show up, and I showed up. Some of you fucking must be getting something out of this to be sticking around. So yeah, I'm feeling good, and it's nice to see all of you. So Alan says, Merc, do you have any thoughts about the communists and its spiritual implications? No, not at all. I really don't pay attention. Well, I listen to some amount of politics, but I really don't get intellectually involved in politics. I observe it like something that really isn't my business. Yeah, I don't feel like politics are my business. I don't know how the world should run. I'm not living in the real world. I'm living in my own little fucking bubble. I'm far enough on the outside that what the center decides to do, I really don't feel is any of my business. I'm out on the edge with the giants and the dog-headed men, and they just don't have any business voting on what happens inside the walled city in the center. I don't know what the fuck anybody should do with the economy or politics. I'm all about individual experience. And yeah, I just don't have much else to say about politics. Ryan said, the old gods, congrats on your new land. Yeah, absolutely. Why the fuck didn't I say that? That's fucking fantastic. And okay, and since you said you procured it, so you went out of your way. It's not like an inheritance or something, right? So if you bought that piece of land, of course I recommend the hermit lifestyle to you. You wouldn't have bought that piece of land if you weren't one of those people. Although, what are you talking about? Like, are you talking about moving off the grid like permanently, or are you putting up a little cabin as like a getaway? Do you have a lifestyle where you can go away long weekends, or that you can take a month off here and there? Yeah, so are you talking about actually moving and being full hermit, which I did for a couple years and loved? Or are you talking about creating a retreat so that you can get out and do it somewhat? Okay, Asa says, the depression and bipolar doesn't impede upon your reflection and interrupt your thoughts. Yeah, the depression, every emotional state I have affects my ability to reflect and interrupts my thoughts. And I practice long hours of being mindful of that. And that's what got me really far. So I could see really easily how my depression affects my thinking, because I've been mindful of my depression and notice the thoughts that comes with me. It's being mindful and reflecting upon the actual experience you're having, no matter what it is. You can learn a lot from being depressed if you learn to be mindful of it. And you can learn what different emotional states do to your filter of reality, the way different emotional states affect which memories you can access and how you remember things, the way it actually filters the past. And you can notice many of my moods like have catchphrases they come with, have things they say, you know, every time I feel this way. Or like, for instance, suicidal depression. Every time I wake up feeling suicidally depressed, I'm going to think one of a number of thoughts about killing myself. And I know that comes with the depression. I've been mindful of it. I don't lose myself in the depression. I'm not the depression. And I don't define those thoughts as me anymore. I observe it. And when I wake up now, like first thing, when I'm depressed and I wake up and that goes through my head, my very first thought is, okay, I'm depressed. I am not choosing to accept that thought. I don't want to kill myself. I am feeling like I want to kill myself because I'm depressed. And I become instantly mindful of what's going on. And the only way I'm able to counter the negatives of my various emotional states is because I've spent the time to be mindful and to observe what happens to me during these states so that I can begin compensating for it. And one thing is to not let that train of thought go wild, because if when those first suicidal thoughts pop up, you identify with them, you connect to it, you add power to it, and then you start working with the suicidal thought. Maybe this is like the way Peterson said in Cain and Abel. Evil was described as some sort of, it was like a feline type creature that you invited it in and basically like worked with it, or was there some sort of sexual phrase like you that you invited it in and you contributed to it, as in you sort of mated with the evil. when the thought pops into your head, if you're seduced by it and you connect to it and you begin projecting your own words into it, so you accept that you're suicidal, you accept that thought and you begin adding on to it. It's like you're mating with it. You're forming a union with those horrible thoughts that just popped into your head that you didn't choose to have. You like join with them and begin creating more, and you get caught up in that and sucked into it. Instead, you have to notice that dark creature that has approached you inside and said something, and you can't join it and participate, or it's going to go off the rails. If you can separate from those things, and whichever way, it's like sometimes I do sort of sense my inner world and experience the emotion like a storm, that I actually enlarge the space and pull my consciousness up and observe the storm. Or sometimes things inside me come as images, as like creatures or people. It's to observe them, to realize you are not them, and then to observe them like there's something you don't know and you can get to know by watching it and paying attention to it. Then you learn what thoughts best follow. So if you know that every time you get home from work and it's before you've eaten and you're tired, you always get a wave of depression and feel like you embarrass yourself every day at the morning meeting. And if later checking with other people, you realize that like you've seen more than once, that it's not true when you think that you've embarrassed yourself. It's just that when you get a low mood, that thought always pops into your head. You observe it repeatedly, and then you start reminding yourself of it when you have it. So no, this happens every time I haven't eaten early enough and I'm overtired. I always think that I'm embarrassing myself in social situations, and it's never as bad as I thought it was. So I recognize why that thought's occurring to me. It comes automatically. I'm not going to connect with it, and I'm not going to give it any other power. Okay. Alan says, maybe it's a weird question, but man, Dostoevsky talk about it, Nietzsche too, even Peterson, maybe it's an important issue nowadays that I was ignoring. So I think you mean about communism. Yeah, these political things are obviously important, because that's how a significant portion of our culture works. But I don't feel like I should be a part of political discussions. Yeah, I'm more interested in individual experience of the world, and I'm not interested in groups. And I mean, like, I'm interested in knowing as much as I can about the world, but yeah, I feel like politics just isn't any of my business. Yeah, so James says, interesting idea to use the podcast to practice mindfulness. Absolutely, you can use absolutely anything to practice mindfulness. Even something unpleasant like getting a tattoo, you can try to practice mindfulness of, like, to notice how your body reacts to it. Do you tense up? Does it change your breathing? What does it do to your thoughts? Do you feel more or less optimistic when you're experiencing pain? It's amazing with everything, depression, excitement, you can observe what it does to your thinking, because often when you're depressed, you feel like giving up on things, or you are very inclined to think that something's not worth doing or you won't do it right. When you're in a better mood, you're more likely to be optimistic, to think that you can achieve something. Every mood affects our thoughts in various ways. Also, every mood is an opportunity to examine different philosophical points. Because when you're in a great mood, it's very easy to think about the oneness of the universe and that God is good and all kinds of shit. But if you've got some serious suicidal depression, try examining moral issues in that state and notice how much that changes your thinking. I like to examine important philosophical things in as many moods as I can, mindfully, and then to look at the greater picture. Well, when I was feeling good and I thought about this, free will seems so obvious, even though it was hard to explain and blah, blah, blah. But I notice that when I'm suicidal, the lack of free will that Sam Harris discusses seems just so obviously clear. So you'll find you can, thinking is trying to look at everything from two sides. So if you've got extreme emotional states, it gives you an opportunity to examine something. And if you're mindful, you might be surprised how differently you think about things in different moods, and how the intuitions that just pop into your head, the connections to other facts, you'll get a deeper understanding of something if you explore it at a variety times of year and in different emotional states. So the old god says at least a few years. So you're thinking about being a hermit for at least a few years. That's fucking awesome. And what kind? Like totally cutting yourself off? Because I did have 2 years, no internet, no phone, no car. I just had my supplies dropped off to me. For those couple years, I went to like my parents' place occasionally when it was just them, and I went to psychiatrist appointments. And I think that's just about it. Or once a year, I would go to the used bookstore, and it was a huge ordeal. But I'd get a family member to take me to the local used bookstore, which is awesome. And I would just buy this huge box of books to get me through the year. So yeah, are you going like full hermit, or are you going to have internet? Because that's the way I sort of have been for years now, is I still don't leave my house, or like the farm I'm on. Like I go outside quite a bit in the summer, but I don't leave my house that often. But I do have much more interaction with people. And over the years, just more and more and more and more. At first, it was letting more people into my world. And then now it's moving out into the world through these digital portals and connecting to all of you fine folks. Okay, so Asa says, double-edged sword. Art is the only thing that means anything to me, yet I have no desire to create anymore. Illness incapacitates and thwarts my ambitions, but it's the very stimulus that compels me. Okay, so first of all, Asa, that's all right. So here's one thing I've noticed. You can be suicidally depressed and just suicidally depressed, or you can be suicidally depressed and you can make a value judgment that it is not okay to be suicidally depressed. Now you have two problems. You're suicidally depressed and you feel horrible because you're suicidally depressed. And that makes it twice as bad. For me, I had to believe in some bigger purpose, and that me suffering through really went somewhere. And that it was for a purpose. But at the very least, you have to, you don't have to do anything. Sorry that I'm using that language. I had to learn to be okay with my extreme states when they happen. I found it's much easier to work with something if you accept it. So, because especially for me at first, going bipolar, I did not want to be bipolar. It was like, fuck that. I don't want to be a crazy person. It was not okay. It meant I sucked as a human being. And it was like, it felt wrong to be that. And I never got anything under control when I was in that mode. It wasn't until I said, okay, I'm a fucking lunatic and there's nothing wrong with that. I've got to learn to accept it. And instead of trying to be normal, I just tried to be the best lunatic I could be. And my initial goals were just don't kill yourself when you're suicidal, and don't cause any problem to the world or go so far in my mania psychosis that I need to be institutionalized. Just don't be a problem for the world and don't kill yourself was the only goal I had. And I had to accept that that was good enough. And I did put together an understanding of the world where if we continue beyond this life, I can see myriad reasons why enduring what I have endured has taught me how to interact with forms of emotional energy, with realms of thought. And I can imagine that being very useful in the longer story to come. So I was able to create a heroic story around just enduring bipolar when it was its worst. And that has led me to it getting better and better and better. So also what you're saying, Asa, about art is the only thing that means anything, yet you have no desire to create anymore. That's an intense state. And there's like a tension of polarities there where it's the only thing that's meaningful and yet I can't do it. There's that pull. There's a value to learning how to experience that state. I understand it's not productive and that nobody in society is going to treat you like that has any value. But the great shamans and saints and mystic teachers have learned how to interact with complex, difficult things in the internal world. And what you're going through now is excellent training for all kinds of spiritual, or learn to master this and you'll be surprised what you might be able to do for the world one day. Because like the point where I thought just not killing myself and not getting locked up in a mental institution, like if I could just get through my life without getting locked up in an institution again and die naturally somehow, that would be a success, even if I was no use to anyone other than that whatsoever. And then now here I am talking to all of you and getting involved in so many people's lives. And it's only because of all of that I went through. Most of what I'm sharing with people isn't actually from what I've learned from Peterson or Sam Harris or Alan Watts. It's what I've experienced inside and observed. And all these other great thinkers, of course, add details and pieces, give me ways to express what I've experienced and give me further insight into it. But the basic foundation that all of this is built on has come out of isolation and experience and mindfulness through treacherous extremes. So you don't know where this is going to lead you one day, and what, especially with artistic endeavors, the more fucking hell you can go in and out of and survive and come out a good person and put yourself back together, the more amazing work you might be able to do. Okay, so Dog Bark says, what region are you in? Time zone, midnight. Do you take doctor subscribed psych meds? How are they? Okay, so I am in Quebec, so Eastern Standard Time, and it is now 1:08. Do I take doctor prescribed psych meds? Not now. I have a bunch of times, and I'm not anti-psych meds for people for whom it works. I'm supportive of somebody who takes them and it's good for them, and I'm supportive of somebody who doesn't take them and is looking for other methods. But I think, 20 or 30% of people bipolar type 1 just don't respond to medications in a good way. I found with medications, I either got horrible side effects or bad side effects or terrible side effects, or not much effect at all. And so the one psych med I was on the longest, Lamotrigine, the reason I continued to take it was because I didn't notice any side effects, and I wasn't sure it was doing anything positive at all, but I didn't notice any side effects. Oh, as long as I didn't take it at bedtime. So I was prescribed to take it morning and night. I took it just in the morning instead because I found it would interfere with sleep, but that if I didn't, I don't know that it had any effect at all, but I took it for years. I did get better over those years, but I did so many things simultaneously. And when I would forget to take it for a while or something, it really seemed to do nothing to me. But I took it for a while, and then I decided, because if I did try to take it late at night, Like after taking it for a long time, I noticed if I tried to take it at night, it really fucked up my sleep. And then I was beginning to forget to take it more and more. And it might have been coincidence. It's so hard because there's so many factors with bipolar. But it did start to seem like, even though I never thought I noticed anything going on to it, that when I forgot to take it for a few days, I felt better. And so eventually I just decided to go off my meds. And and I never got in a high dose of it either. My doctor kept trying to up it, and I kept saying no because. But anyway, when I did decide to go off it again, I continued to just get better and better. But again, I was working on so many things. I really have no idea if that ever did anything for me or not. But these psych meds I took that had noticeable effects were always terrible. Okay, so Alan says, I noticed that as I become less anxious and depressed, I don't need to think too much about my spirituality. It's not like I don't feel it, but I don't need to seek it out so much. I trust more. Yeah, anxiety and depression do have a tendency to make us turn towards that spiritual side more. I find for me, and so perhaps your level when you're not anxious or depressed. I find overall I go through depression and mania. And mania absolutely comes with, at least for me, focus on the spiritual and the magical, and all of that just comes along. Both my long psychotic episodes were spiritual and religious and all of that. And so I think I probably get even more enthusiastic about spirituality when I'm manic than when I'm depressed. So Andrew says, how different do you feel doing live streams? Oh, hey, Andrew. Doing live streams now compared to your first time? Extremely different. And I don't know if you caught the beginning of this or not. I had fucking nothing to say. No one was saying anything for a while. I think there was a lot of silence, and it went just horribly at the beginning, and I didn't care at all. I was very stressed out about going live and like being there at midnight. I have trouble with structure and schedule. But yeah, I was stressed about being on time and that the day going all right up to that. But as soon as I started going, even when it didn't go well, I just got more and more comfortable as it went. That's pretty surreal because I'm aware, like there's 22 people watching. That's strange. I should feel some sort of pressure, but I feel no pressure whatsoever here. So very different. I'm and perhaps it's the people that we've gotten to know, the people we've talked to, and the emails we've gotten compared to at first. It was mostly comments on the screen and likes and views as feedback initially. The more people I've gotten to know here, I really feel like, especially once a bunch of people that I have talked to face came on, I feel like I'm kind of talking to a group of friends, and I'm aware there's some strangers watching, but it doesn't bother me. I'm ridiculously comfortable considering I'm just streaming live and anyone could be watching. Okay, Alan says, practice or intention? What do you think is more important when one is seeking to walk with God? I'm reading Louis Lavelle, and he talks a lot about the problems of the practices and forced habits. Practice or intention are both important. I think that depends on your nature. So I think I would have to know more about you to give more feedback on that. Although for me personally, I probably lead more towards intention, but I work well with chaos. Okay, yeah, Andrew answered you a bit there. I'll let you read that yourself. I want to see what the old god said. So the plan is to leave the property once a month for provisions, totally off grid, no cell service, no electric, and no restrictions on how I use the land or what I can construct on it. I will have solar powered satellite internet. I'm not a Luddite. Okay, that's awesome. And like, yeah, I would love to have that. I would love to be self sufficient off grid here. And the idea of a little cabin out in the middle of nowhere, but with a good satellite connection is like a little slice of heaven to me. So, yeah, I say go for it. You obviously want to. And I think you will find that incredibly rewarding. And so if you're only leaving once a month for provisions, how are you living? Is there any kind of job you're doing up there? Or do you have some sort of money put away that you can just move out there and do whatever the fuck you want without having to worry how you're going to acquire your provisions? Yeah, and even as like I'm out in the country, I can't see any of my neighbors, but the road's right there. And I do sometimes wish I could spend some time even more remote than here. Um, a couple like dream vacations I have in my head are I would love to visit like the North or South Pole in the dead of winter to experience that level of frozen over energy and that distance. Because I have delusions of being psychic and picking up on energies and stuff. I would love to experience that level of cold and calm. I would also love to just go out on a boat into the middle of the ocean, as far away from any person as possible, as far away from any shipping lanes, and to be just completely alone on a boat out in the middle of the ocean with nothing but the energies of the sky and the deep ocean underneath. For like a month, I think would be an incredible vacation. And with that one, you wouldn't even want an internet connection. You'd want to feel really cut off. North or South Pole, it would be great to have internet, but to go out into the ocean with just a stack of books and CDs and DVDs and a fishing rod, I think would be a fantastic vacation. Yeah, I was just thinking back on Andrew's question about how this feels different compared to before. Yeah, I'm getting more and more relaxed about it. At first, I would get totally, and I still do often, get totally caught up in myself while doing the channel. And often in talking to people, because I'm trying to be so mindful of them and to connect to go what's going on with them, I'm often less mindful of myself more often when I'm talking to other people. And a lot of what I've done so far, podcasts or conversations, my ability. It's like I was saying to James, I think that you can use listening to a podcast as an opportunity for mindfulness. It has taken me a while to get any mindfulness while doing a podcast. Yeah, and because I've been doing most of this by trying to clear my mind as much as possible and focus on the person speaking, then just allowing what comes out of me to come out. But with the additional anxiety and all the thoughts that go on about with the channel, it's been very hard to be mindful while doing a podcast. I've been getting more times of being mindful more and more as this has gone on. And tonight, in fact, being mindful hasn't been difficult at all. What's been difficult is to really get myself talking. And so maybe talking and mindfulness have a tendency not to work well together. Because I always feel most myself when I'm alone. And my inner world is the richest when I'm alone, when I'm talking to other people or focusing on other people. I really try to give as much attention as possible to their experience. So I think I need to work on my mindfulness without taking away from giving the person my full focus. I think I need to work on my mindfulness while I'm doing these things. There's no reason I can't develop that further. Okay, so Andrew says, do you think that transgender male to female athletes should be able to compete against cisgendered females? I have no idea. That feels like politics to me, especially because I have no interest in sports whatsoever. And I have no stake in that. So I don't know. I've never cared much about sports. And yeah, I just don't think that's anything I really have anything to say about. Because I'm not a fan personally of the idea that we need everyone's opinion about everything. I really don't think, like, if there was a poll being taken about what should be done with a certain sports stadium, and they were like calling all the locals that everyone gets a say, if it's about a sports stadium, I really shouldn't be voting at all because I'm not going to go there. I'm not one of the people involved. And so with all of that, I guess it depends on probably the sport and the overall rules that people feel like playing by. It would be nice, I guess, maybe if there was enough sports going on that we could maintain both. Like, is there a way to have some where they can compete and some where they don't? I don't know. Yeah. See, I really don't feel I have anything to say about it and don't feel a need to have an opinion on every issue. Okay, wait. I'll get back to Mike in a minute, I think, but I want to see what the old god said. This guy's making me guy, gal, or transgender, other, I don't know which, but is making me curious. I'm a little jealous of what they're planning. So I sold everything I own with the exception of some clothes, a seashell collection, and a Cobra convertible. I have acquired a trunk and am in the process a truck. Sorry, I have acquired a truck and I'm in the process of outfitting it. That's fucking awesome. So what, where are you living now? Are you somewhere like small town? Are you in the country and moving more remote, or are you living in a city? I'm getting more and more fascinated by you. What's triggering this change? And hey, do you want to come on and talk about it? Because there's well, you hear a fair amount of talk about people wanting to go off grid and researching all of that. Not that many people actually do it. So if you're interested, I would love to have a conversation with you. And like, yeah, one of the themes of this channel is personal transformation. Sounds like you're a unique individual, and I would love to be able to talk to you without it having to just be messages, because that's a... You said you're in a crack hotel in Houston now? Okay. Then absolutely you will be happier in a cabin out in nature. And yeah, if you're getting out of a shitty place and trying to create your own little garden, your own little heaven here, I would love to hear about it. If you'd want to come on and talk to us, email us, because yeah, I would love to hear more about what's going on with you. Although you said, Old God said, I netted a nut. I don't get what you mean by that. Asa says, brain trauma can alter and change a personality in many ways, whether it's a proclivity towards criminality and aggression or becoming savant genius. And with my struggles, kind of scary to think about. Yeah, absolutely. I find it fascinating to think about what can happen to a person with some, just one shot to the head and the changes that it can cause. And it really makes you wonder how much of us is us. And so, Asa, with the place you're in life, with what you're experiencing, are you careful about what you take in? Like, the power of art. The power of language. The power of where our thoughts lead us. So for instance, like, I really enjoy fucked up horror movies, like some very disturbing art. I enjoy a wide spectrum of things. I love the horror genre, but when I'm depressed, I'm very careful about what I take in. Now, it's odd. Sometimes diving into horror can feel cathartic and actually feels good. Other times it doesn't. And so try to be mindful and aware of, like, thinking about brain trauma and studying it. What is it doing to you? If that's making you increasingly anxious, if it's bringing you down, maybe be careful. Yeah, and think about how much our subconscious runs us and how much symbols and music and words sink in. Maybe try to be careful with what you're taking in. And what Peterson says about cleaning up your room and then beautifying it is excellent. Like, if you're living in a pile of garbage and your place is filthy, I know it's hard to get going, but that can really bring down your mood. But also, if you can find the right piece of great art, some house plants, things that feel good, if you can surround yourself with that and allow your subconscious to absorb it. And actually, check out Asa if you feel like it. I think it's on YouTube here. Darren Brown did a special called Apocalypse, I believe. And at the beginning, when he's setting up for this magic trick, this illusion, and he's investigating the person's life, he goes to the person's bedroom and talks about how much everything in the room is affecting that person. All the, what, this shows about his thought process, and just notice that how much our environment affects us. But also then I think you'll enjoy, well, you might, because what he does is he sets someone up, hypnotizes them, and then does this dramatic thing, like where he's got shit going on the TV, on the local radio, and he simulates like a zombie apocalypse for one person. He picks somebody who's sort of complacent, lazy, unappreciative of their family, unappreciative of their friends, very much takes life for granted, doesn't try, isn't there for other people the way he should be. And he puts them through a zombie apocalypse where he thinks he loses his family. It's amazing the way he does it, this elaborate setup. And to watch this guy go through what he thinks is the end of the world and zombies just taking over and the effect it has on him, I think you could really enjoy. Actually, everyone, that Darren Brown Apocalypse special is amazing, and it will make you look at your own life differently. Okay, so James says, what was the process of establishing a relationship with your guardian angel like? Did it start off with hearing a small voice, or was it that all of a sudden you could see your guardian angels? So it was all of a sudden. Not seeing it in the sense of it in a body, but it being a presence that filled the entire room. And yeah, I don't want to say too much specifically about my prime angel. That's just a little too deep and personal. But my angel is very present, woven through reality for me. And the first experience was an intense sensation that all of reality had altered. Like the quality of light changed. Reality seemed slightly less real and dreamlike, even though I could still see normal reality. Visually, it's as if there was a fog in the room, but a fog made up of a kind of light, sort of, that overlaid reality and was like suddenly, whoom, like a change in everything. And my own body felt different. It permeated right through. And I normally don't have the auditory sensation when I'm feeling I'm receiving foreign thoughts, which I have tons of that. It comes in the form more like psychic, like thoughts developing in my head. I think other than this one time, I've never had the auditory hallucinations at all. But when my angel announced itself, it just altered all of reality around me. Felt a powerful presence, and I heard the name like an auditory hallucination. And it just came in like, whoa, world-changing, intense, out of nowhere. And I wasn't reaching out for a connection. I was playing a video game at the time and was manic. So I imagine I was playing a video game. Don't remember if I had music on or not, oddly. But I bet you my mind was racing just thinking about stuff, but I wasn't reaching out to an angel. I wasn't expecting it. It just came in, bam, out of nowhere. Alan says, there are so many questions I would like to make to Merc, and I wish I could communicate fully with you guys. The active presence. Well, yeah, do you want to... Well, you can keep flooding me with some more questions. I'm up for a little bit more right now, or do you want to try to push yourself and come on and have a chat with us? The last bit of this went by pretty quickly. You guys started asking questions, and I had more come to mind. Wasn't as shitty as the first half of this. But I am starting to wonder if I've done enough for the night. I don't think everyone needs to be anything monumental of 2 or more hours, but in particular, if there's anybody on who hasn't said anything so far, and is nervous or just was waiting for the right time, someone new put something up, I'll definitely respond to it. Or yeah, I'll take a few more questions. If a ton floods in, I may not answer all of it, but take a few more minutes, see if anyone has anything they want to talk about, and maybe I'll head off fairly soon. Jabe says, I appreciate you being willing to talk about these things to the extent you have so far. Cool, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm glad you appreciate it, and I think it's been good for me. There's been a lot of stress and pressure around this. There's been a lot of pushing myself. But I think overall it's been good for me to do the channel. So I'm going to wait a minute to see if anyone else has anything they want to say before I disappear. Andrew, good night to you, my friend. I hope you get a great rest as well. And all of you, thanks for showing up and hanging out. Thanks for being so patient all these times I had nothing to say. So thanks for sitting in silence with me now and then when I didn't have a constant stream to flood out. Okay, so Alan says, could I talk a bit about the ritual for self-control that I mentioned in the other stream? I think what I'm going to do with that one is I'm definitely going to do it, but I'm going to try to do that instead of just rambling about it on a live stream. I think I'm going to try to make a video about it, like on its own, with a bit of editing and a example. And it's almost the optimal time of year for it. So rather than going into that now, although I have kept that in mind, I have thought now and then about whether I should just talk about it on a live stream or put together a video, but I'm going to try putting together a video about that. I haven't forgotten about it. I'm just waiting till the right time to do so. All right. Well, I'm sure there were a few things I missed because I remember skipping down a couple times and intending to go back. So to anyone that I skipped your comment or question, sorry about that. For anything that when you asked, I didn't have much to say, try again another night. Thank you all for showing up. Love and blessings to everybody. And we will do this again on the next full moon. Also, I may just pop on live at any time, and anyone who is tired of communicating via message, just write into the channel at sortingmyselfout0@gmail.com, and maybe we can have you on for an actual discussion. All right. I hope everyone has a wonderful night.